Assalamu alaikum. Respectable chair, co-chairs, and organizers. I'm thankful for inviting me to this third international conference on environment and sustainable development, which is organized by Sustainable Development Study Center at Government College University, Lahore. I am Tariq Aziz, Associate Professor at University of Agriculture, Faisalabad. Today, I will be discussing on food security and environmental concerns of reactive nitrogen, with special emphasis on Pakistan's perspective. The academic definition of food security, which is very much related to Sustainable Development Goal 2, Zero Hunger. It is achieved when all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their food preferences and dietary needs for an active and healthy life. However, this definition may differ in different regions. For example, we cannot compare the Europe and the South Asia or Africa, because we are struggling towards sufficient food. So nearly 1 in 8 people experience chronic hunger, that is 870 million people worldwide out of 7.8 billion people. So I would say that this is the biggest challenge for humanity of this century and in the future, and we have to produce about 70% more food to feed about 9.6 billion or 10 billion people by 2050. Same, we have to increase the feed production for expanding livestock. The second biggest challenge, which is not a fiction or prediction, is climate change. It is a bitter reality. We have too much of rains or no rain around the year in the same location. So this is also a challenge to food production. It has almost completely changed the food production systems in many parts of the world. So there has never been a more urgent need to restore damaged ecosystems than now. And we see the climate risk index. Pakistan is among top 5 countries of the world which have been most affected during 1999 to 2018. And if we see the share of Pakistan in global greenhouse gas emissions, it is less than 1% or about 1%. But we are mostly affected. So we have to take serious action at both local, regional, and global levels. So how to tackle, how we can increase food production? There are generally 2 options. One is to increase area under crop production and to increase yield per acre. But the first one, it is nearly impossible, as we have already exploited our land, overexploited our land, and desertification, urbanization, drought, deforestation, and many other factors do not permit us to increase more land under agronomic crops. So the viable option is to increase yield per acre by improving various production factors. And today I will discuss only on one of the production factors, which is nitrogen. Nitrogen is a very important element, essential element for plants and animals, because it is a structural part of DNA, RNA. These are genetic codes, genetic materials. It is a part of proteins, amino acids, enzymes, coenzymes, chlorophyll, ATP, and ADP. So without nitrogen, there is no food. And if we say the synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, the nitrogen feed the world as 48% of current population relies on synthetic nitrogen fertilizer application. It is clear that about 3.8 billion people today relies on synthetic nitrogen fertilizer application. So nitrogen has a significant role in food productivity and sustaining life on planet Earth. And it is also very clear that nitrogen use has been increased significantly from 1961 to onward. And more importantly, the increase is in Asia, and which is well correlated with the expanding population in Asia. So nitrogen use and population are well correlated. It has been increased from less than 20 million to more than 100 million tons globally. So we have increased nitrogen use tremendously. Of course, production has been increased. So we see the nitrogen use per hectare among various countries around the globe. Pakistan or South Asia, we can say that it is on the higher side, and we have 100 kilograms nitrogen per hectare, or more than 100 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare we're adding. So we see the history of nitrogen addition in Pakistan. The total nitrogen inputs were less than 500 gigagrams per year in 1960. And it has increased to about 5,000 gigagrams per year as a total. And the synthetic fertilizers are the main contributor towards total nitrogen input. So we have observed tenfold increased application to cropland during last 5 decades, means 408 gigagrams nitrogen per year to 4,636 gigagrams nitrogen per year. And very importantly, the manure application, which is the organic form of nitrogen and other elements too, have been reduced from 44 to 23%, almost half. And on the other hand, synthetic fertilizer application has been increased from 16 to 68%. And we see the changes in nitrogen use efficiency means what we are adding in the soil, is it being used in the yield, or is it being converted to the yield? The question is no. The use efficiency has been decreased from about 60% to 23%. Means if we add 100 kilograms of nitrogen today, only 23 kilograms to 30 kilograms of nitrogen is converted into some edible portion or usable portion or yield. And rest, more than 70%, is available in the soil, which can be released anywhere. So we see the surplus nitrogen in 1960 to 65, there is about 171 gigagrams of surplus nitrogen. Nitrogen use efficiency was 58%, which decreased to 23%, and resultantly, the surplus nitrogen in soil is more than 3,000 gigagrams. So this much amount of nitrogen is present in the soil. And we see the nitrogen cycle, and it is very important to mention that nitrogen is 78% of the air which we breathe, but plants cannot take this nitrogen, and it is not very much important for environmental issues. However, many reactive forms of nitrogen, such as ammonia, ammonium nitrite, nitrate, N2O, NO, NOx, these are very much important for environmental concerns. And when we add fertilizer in the soil, Some of the fertilizer is taken up by the plants and rest is available, which is surplus, and it is available to be released in the atmosphere, maybe towards the atmosphere or to the groundwater. We see the environmental concerns of this huge amount of residual nitrogen. So, ammonia gas volatilization, NOx are important air pollutants, which also forms the particulate matter, while nitrous oxide is a greenhouse gas, which is more potent than carbon dioxide. Always we listen the word carbon dioxide when there is a discussion on climate change, but nitrogen is also an important contributor towards global warming. And nitrates, when leached down out of the root zone, they pollute surface and groundwaters and cause eutrophication and dead zones. So air quality and water quality is being deteriorated, and it can be well correlated with the nitrogen use. So air and water pollution causes biodiversity loss and also health issues, and importantly, the climate change. So we have to consider the nitrogen input and its management, because without nitrogen, there is no food. But with too much of nitrogen, there is climate change and many other health issues. For example, in Pakistan, gaseous nitrogen losses have been increased from less than 10 gigagram to more than 100 gigagrams as a total. And various forms of nitrogen gases like ammonia and N2O from manure and the fertilizers. And we see the ammonia release has been increased from 70 to 1023 gigagrams of nitrogen per year, and nitrous oxide 10 to 153. So this is a significant increase, and we have to consider it. And if we compare the nitrogen use in Pakistan with major countries of South Asia or as a world, so Pakistan has observed significant increase in nitrogen use as a total. So if we compare the nitrogen use efficiency, partial factor productivity, just an example for wheat, Pakistan is on the lower side from among different countries, which are mostly wheat producing countries. And we see the nitrogen inputs, the third column. Pakistan is on the higher sides because we are adding about 200 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. But we are gaining very less in terms of crop productivity. The South Asia is a global hotspot, and now it is leading the world towards sustainable nitrogen management. So one question is, can we completely shift to organic agriculture without adding any type of synthetic fertilizers? The answer is no. Recently, Sri Lankan government has banned all type of fertilizers or chemicals to become the first in the world to go organic. But just in 1.5 years, the government has to impose economic emergency because food production has decreased and it has threatened the tea industry and overall farm productivity. And resultantly, the food prices have been increased. No doubt there is COVID implications, but the production has decreased significantly because of no fertilizer use. So the solution is only the sustainable nitrogen management, because without nitrogen, we cannot live. And with too much of nitrogen, there is too much implications. So sustainable nitrogen management can improve our food productivity, can clean our water resources, can help us in combating climate change. So good health and economic growth are the results. So sustainable nitrogen management is linked with many of the sustainable development goals. And if we fail to stop nitrogen pollution, it could limit the safe operating margins for many other issues facing our planet Earth. So a holistic and joint-up approach is needed to reduce nitrogen pollution at national, regional, and global scale. Various global actions for sustainable nitrogen management are: one, the UN has established a reactive nitrogen task force, international nitrogen management systems, South Asia Nitrogen Hub. In 2019, United Nations Environment Assembly has passed a resolution to combat nitrogen pollution, which was being led by India. In 2019, again, a Colombo Declaration was adopted by United Nations Environment Program with the aim to halve nitrogen waste. And if we just succeed in this ambition to halve nitrogen waste, about 100 billions of rupees will be saved, can be saved, which can then be utilized for many other issues like health, education, so on. So without considering nitrogen, we cannot go for net zero. And considering the Pakistan, in 2021, Pakistan hosted the World Environment Day, which is a program of United Nations Environment Program. And this is, I think, that it is a recognition from the world. On 4th of June, in a series from United Nations Environment World Environment Day, we have also conducted sustainable nitrogen management for ecosystem restoration. So a story and an interview session with me was also published in United Nations Environment Programs in a series of World Environment Day. And we discussed on why South Asia needs to tackle a surge in nitrogen pollution. And nitrogen use in Pakistan and the whole of South Asia has grown exponentially over the past 4 decades. We have also compiled data and published in environment research letters, piling up reactive nitrogen and declining nitrogen use efficiency in Pakistan. And our book on nitrogen assessment, Pakistan as a case study, is going to be published by academic press, hopefully in December 2021. And the pre-launch of this book was also held in the previous webinar, which was hosted by United Nations Environment Program. So I'm very much thankful to South Asia Nitrogen Hub, University of Agriculture, Faisalabad, and of course, the Government College University, Lahore. The take-home message is sustainable nitrogen management is a key towards food security as well as towards combating climate change. Thank you very much.